So the comments that I was making about Diane Abbott being targeted by Fiona Bruce when Bruce began to present the BBC's program, Question Time, can be continued because the coverage of the BBC's kind of state based on the Ofcom report, annual report on the BBC. The coverage by the Times leaves out any reference to racism and any impact on the BBC's kind of position among viewers caused by the BBC's position on racism, because the BBC is racist and is in denial. Now, the agenda fueling this kind of space that the Times has given is, of course, linked to the fact that the Times is owned by Rupert Murdoch, who is a rival to the BBC, and he has started his own Times Radio. Quite apart from the fact that he is still a key controller of the Sky network. And in terms of the business, in terms of the business of politics, if you like, or business of broadcasting, the BBC, the idea of the BBC as a sort of public service is still one that is hostile to the ideology of Rupert Murdoch. But for a public service type of broadcaster, the BBC is failing society. It's not serving society. It's not delivering anti-racism, let alone opposing racism in its behavior and conduct. Now, this one is, of course, the spread about Liverpool and London being targeted by the government for stricter kind of restrictions, and the Liverpool mayor and the London mayor are being in negotiation with the government on various aspects of the restrictions. And what is happening here is that there is no consistent scientific evidence about any of the restrictions proposed or already in place. And there is a very rare piece about the Fleet Street's attitude to Meghan Markle. They're saying that she's getting praise from the charity sector, charities, for revealing pain of the miscarriage. That is a very rare piece for Meghan from Fleet Street, because most of their coverage has been hostile to her, and it's based on their racism. And Diana's brother is still in the news about the Martin Bashir kind of lies. There is a piece by their environment editor, which is saying something absolutely true. That is a very rare piece. It is saying that Apple computer makes a waste tsunami of gadgets that can't be fixed. This is what I have been saying for what? Just under 30 years. I began using devices made by Apple computer in 1991. And throughout the years, I have encountered problems intentionally created by Apple computer just to sell things, but not to fix. And Apple computer is an obstruction against repairing devices that are perfectly otherwise okay to use and reuse. And in the nearly 30 years that I have been using Apple computer, I have been locked into buying Apple products because they're not compatible with other products in the same kind of technology, if you like. And I'm not alone. I think I'm in the majority, vast, overwhelming majority of consumers who have been forced, locked into buying and keep buying and buying and buying Apple computers, devices, most of which are now unrepairable. And that is intentional. And that should be banned. And it is worth trillions of pounds. Across the world, Apple has been conning people, forcing people, trapping people to buy Apple products without any compatibility with other products. That is, products made by other manufacturers. And having said that about the Times, that this is truthful, the Times itself is locking people out or in. And its letters column, which is a scientifically, objectively kind of usable measure of its editorial policy and narrative. It has got European named letter writers, no Asian named or African named ones. That is just like Apple. It's barring people from exercising freedom, and it's blocking people. And the column by David Aranovich, so-called ex-communist, is again against Corbyn and his supporters. And the headline is, "The left is determined to show it's irrelevant." This piece is completely stupid because it says that the left should not be objecting to the wrong policies of Keir Starmer. That's what he's saying. And he's saying they should not be boycotting the NEC meeting, walking out, or whatever. So that's the irrelevance of David Aranovich. Now, the Times is backhandedly recognizing that Brexit is a problem, but it doesn't go anywhere near the length of the truth that it must be telling. And it says the paying for the pandemic. The Chancellor's, that is the Finance Minister's, strategy of letting borrowing rise while supporting jobs and healthcare makes sense. This is the last sentence that is the tricky one, crafty one. Yet long-term questions on spending and Brexit remain. It doesn't spell it out. And the Anthony Lloyd, who kind of did the interview with Shamima Begum that got him a lot of publicity, is back in the Syrian Guantanamo. And it says Al-Hol is the cradle of the new caliphate. And his piece says that camps teach orphans of ISIS how to hate. Now this comes 2 days after the hearing ended on the kind of Home Office's appeal against the Court of Appeal ruling, in principle, allowing Shamima Begum to return to the UK. So this will fuel the kind of speculation about whether she should be allowed to return or not, along the line that Carol Moron and others have been saying. And the Jeremy Vine program had yesterday this piece on its show on Channel 5 television, whether Shamima Begum should be allowed to return. And Carol Moron remotely appeared on it and condemned Shamima Begum. And this piece by Anthony Lloyd about hating, it may be kind of factual, but it's not truthful, because how to hate cannot be isolated just to explain what is happening with the ISIS orphans or whatever, or kind of jihadi Muslims. Hatred is part of the whole narrative of Fleet Street, of the British media, the British school system, the American system, the Western European system. That is what they are doing as well. That kind of hatred program has produced the likes of Carol Moron, who kind of imagine the world without any thought given to the actual realities of the world. For example, she said, why should we pay for kind of monitoring her, that is Shamima Begum? That is a question that is based on a lie. The lie being that the society, the policing in this country is done precisely to spy on people, monitor people in society. So it's not like Shamima Begum is the only one who is being policed and being spied on or going to be kind of followed when and if she is allowed to return to the UK to put forward her appeal against Sajid Javid's taking her natural born British citizenship away. And so the media, Fleet Street, it has to be said again, is sunk in denial of the world. And it is in denial, racistly in denial of the world. And it is absolutely relentlessly racistly in denial, as it is relentlessly, poisonously lying to the readers about the wonders of the Conservative government. It has no hesitation in peddling the lying kind of scenario that Sunak is painting, while in fact he is funding the big business and ignoring the real impact on the poor people and poor people in low income and why he has not scrapped the HS2. Because HS2 is wasting already, it's nearing 200 billion pounds. And Diana's brother has been saying that if the BBC apologizes to him over the Martin Bashir lying and forgery, then it would half absolve him. He says that he was not responsible for introducing, or he didn't introduce, or something like that, to Diana to Bashir, or vice versa. But he feels that the BBC lied to him about what they knew about his sister. Now, there is absolutely no evidence that the BBC is going to kind of apologize to him and confess to its lies, because the BBC's culture is based on lies, founded on lies and lying. There is a piece in the Express about that same issue of Meghan Markle revealing that she had a miscarriage in July, and they're kind of following the narrative of the Fleet Street on this one, that she is being praised for sharing her experience. Why are they doing that? Because the charities that are praising her are white. That's what it is. It's not like she has said something and nobody else has said it. It's the validation that is being given to the racists in Fleet Street by the involvement of these charities that are fronted by white people. As Saida Warsi says, the racism in this country makes it necessary for African people, Asian people, to have to use an intermediary. And the intermediary, if it is a white blonde female, then that is the kind of intermediary that the racist society accepts as a kind of certifier of acceptability of a genuine African or Asian person. That's what is happening here. So we go back to the question of the Russian couple, one of whom has been ordered by the High Court yesterday to make sure that emails that were communicated by using Google were made available to her, that is the wife, Tatiana Akhmedova. Now, by the name, it suggests that they are kind of related to Muslim kind of family. Not Tatiana, the Akhmedova is. And the name Timur, the son who has been holding or hiding documents, is also, the Timur name is also Turkish name, I suppose. So they could be from a Muslim republic that used to be in the former Soviet USSR. Now, that order concerns the claim by the woman, the wife in the case, Tatiana Akhmedova, who has been ordered or awarded a divorce settlement to the tune of 453 million pounds. Now, 453 million is a fraction, is a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction when compared to the impact on the lives of hundreds of millions of people of a policy that would address those hundreds of millions of people's poverty, poor health, and lack of freedom, etc., etc. How does that come into it? Because our campaign has been engaged in a series of legal battles, if you like, with various courts in this country, in England. And these battles are concerned with both defamation and theft and actual loss of actual original works, research, investigation, and text, sound, image, video, audio, all kinds of modes and media and devices, computer devices. And the location of the housing and the loss of the housing. Remember the Royal London Hospital? Mass eviction started by Royal London Hospital criminals putting the properties in New Road in Stepney, London, E1, on auction in 1987. In September 1987, and all the properties are intellectual properties, literally, physically, textually, and in terms of the contents. And those are essential evidence and findings of research, actual work, and evidence of actual work, campaigning for all types and all locations and all varieties of lack of justice and freedom, and the solutions to the lack of justice and freedom, and the various factors at play and as witnessed in the criminal and criminally intended injustice, lack of service, and blacklisting done by people making decisions at all the relevant levels. In addition to those wrongs and crimes, the liabilities owed by ethnicity linked Asians and Africans, or people of Asian kind of ancestry and background and identity, and people of African ancestry and background and identity. Now, these are not measurable by comparing with any existing resource, for the simple reason that there is no existing resource other than the ones that have been the subject of these battles with the court system. So this was unique in every definition of every kind of aspect of the work and the contents. And that does not take into account the detrimental, damaging impact caused to the kittens by the attacks. The kittens that were living in their home in Brick Lane. And the kittens were targeted for distressing, harassing behavior by the particular identifiable criminals concerned. And all this evidence has been ignored by the particular court or courts, which have not given any reason for failing to or refusing to allow the cases and the claims to go ahead. And the battles have been going on effectively from July 2011. Battles about these ones. Other battles, again involving the corrupt and racist court system in this country, or the courts, bureaucracies in this country, date a lot further back to the time when the Tower Hamlets Law Center, that was in the 1980s, the Tower Hamlets Law Center was abused by members of the so-called management committee, because the law center was sent private confidential information by various people seeking the help of the law center, not by me or my movement or the movement that I coordinate or represent, but other people in the community. And I was told almost accidentally by somebody, saying that one member of the management committee, a Bangladeshi member of the management committee, which was predominantly Bangladeshi kind of controlled at that time, had read the private files about a party or parties' cases that were brought to the Tower Hamlets Law Center for private help or help in confidential way. So I raised that with the Law Center's management committee. And as a result of that, I was kind of confronted by one of in fact, the person who had been named as the abuser of the access to the private data. I was confronted and I was given a challenge that if I kind of wanted to challenge the law center, then they could undermine my public position. So on that challenge, I then took them to court. And I made a criminal case against this particular individual. But the reality is that the magistrate's court was staffed by a complete, absolute moron and a racist who had no idea about the duties owed to the public by the law center. And so therefore, I did not get an order against that particular criminal. That is true. And the magistrate, in fact, repeated a completely untruthful kind of suggestion that I was the one who was abusing the court system. I wasn't. I was protecting the community and the person's privacy and the right to be helped by or right to seek help from the law center. But as a result of my work in campaigning against that behavior, the law center completely changed. I didn't get a court order, but I continued the campaign. And all the evidence I had submitted to the management committee was actually taken into account, and this particular member lost their position on the law center, in effect, began to disintegrate. Now, the law center has not integrated again. Now, that was happening in the 1980s. So, 90s, and this is 35, more than 30 years, 32, 33 years. So, there is no real law center behaving as a law center should behave, helping people targeted for injustice, etc., etc. And so when there was no law center active, and in any case, I would not go to a law center with that kind of record of abusing access to persons' private data, etc. So when the attacks are targeted at our campaigns and our archives and the kitten's house, I did not go to the law center. For a start, there was no viable law center going on. There was one, but it was being mainly fronted by a racist woman from either New Zealand or Australia or one of the countries in Southern Africa. She was an apartheid woman, and she abused the fact that I made a call, and she kind of hectored me on the phone during the phone call. So I told her she was a racist and she was an idiot, because my reason for asking for support by the law center did not mean that I didn't know what the law was. And this is the thing that I'll be addressing in detail in another part or in another edition. I know the law, but the bureaucracy is not the same as knowledge of the law. There has to be a bureaucratic kind of series of steps taken. And what Saida Warsi said comes into this. Because the court system is racist generally and prejudiced against members of the campaigning members of the public, because the court system is based on the assumption that it should be recognized as the sole kind of source of legitimacy in any dispute, whatever. Now, if that were true, most of the people targeted for attacks and attacked in society would be left without any remedies at all. And they don't. Most of the disputes are not, let's say, referred to court system. Numerically, in terms of the number of people, in terms of the complexity of the issues, the court system is not even capable, doesn't even have the capacity to meet the needs of even 1% of the people in dispute in the country. And most of the disputes are not referred to the court's bureaucracy, because the court's bureaucracy is absolutely overwhelmingly a diversion from the actual issues, which is why the legal aid system, so-called, is a brazen example of the abuse that the system is, the court system, court bureaucracies. Most persons, licensed law traders, solicitors, barristers make any excuses to create as many hours as possible on the case, on the preparation of the case, in order to be able to claim the maximum or as much as they can manage to. Which reminds me of some of the licensed health practitioners in the so-called health service. Because many of the licensed doctors and dentists and whatever claim their fees based on the number of hours they spend on a case. And anyone who is a genuine kind of user of this system, or kind of who has experience trying to use this system, would know that a large number of these practitioners make up cases so that they can make more appointments than one, as many appointments as necessary, so that they can charge the public source of the fees as much as they can manage to charge. So the legal aid system is completely a corrupt system, corrupting system, and as is the court system. Corrupting, racist, unjust, and populated by people by very significant proportion of the people in the judiciary, in the admin, are ignorant, literally ignorant about the law. And the ignorance is most predominantly about the obligations that these people have to members of the public, to the litigants. So the legal system, the legal bureaucracy can do any wrong, anything illegal, and it's not held to account. Not the admin, not the judges. And most of the judges who are prejudiced, racist, ignorant, lazy, and callous get away because there is no rigorous or competent or reliable forum or system or mechanism to hold them to account. So by default, major claims are suppressed. Major claims worth trillions of pounds are suppressed. And these claims are not even kind of symbolically recognized as existing. When the likes of David Neuberger, the first president of the Supreme Court, boasted in 2017 that when Brexit is effective and brought into effect and realized and implemented and carried out, then London would become the center of the world's dispute resolution. That was such a stupid, ignorant, corrupt, and untruthful assertion to make. So, as we said before, the only people who could come to London High Court mainly, to kind of sue their rivals or whatever, would be people with extreme amounts of money. Now, when the victim of injustice and criminality and corruption is a victim whose victimhood or whose victimization involves their losing personally and organizationally possessions and materials and resources worth billions, how can they get any resolution through these courts? Because they haven't got the billions of pounds or the millions of pounds to fund the adventure through the London courts. It is a central kind of contradiction and a denial. And when the work involved that has been affected by the theft and the robbery and the attacks and the concealment and the hiding, when that work actually relates to unique contribution to causes of poverty being understood, explained, and dealt with, that affects hundreds of millions of people, where can you start the accounting of the losses? And how much is the loss kind of worth?